Retirement planning as a practice owner has more moving parts than it does as an employee. As an owner, you have personal income and business income, and frankly, more choices, which is a good thing. More choice can be good as long as the choices make sense. And my guest today helps her clients sift through their choices from a tax point of view, principally to build a sensible retirement plan for them. I'm Carl White, principal at Mark Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. That's usually what they want. That's usually why they went to become a private practice owner in the first place. But care is better, I believe, when the provider owns the practice, because all the clinical decisions, all the business decisions can be made by the same person or groups of people. Sometimes they intertwine, sometimes one affects the other. I think it's just best when it's the provider of care who's making all of those choices, because who better to keep the patient first than the provider of care? My guest today is Alexis Gallati. Alexis is the founder and lead tax strategist at Cerebral Tax Advisors and Cerebral Wealth Academy, and she's the author of the book Advanced Tax Planning for Medical Professionals. She's over 20 years of experience in high-level strategic tax planning and multi-state tax preparation, and she's trained at the highest level, holding 2 master's degrees. Alexis grew up in a family of physicians and is married to a private practice physician. That's why she understands how hard medical professionals work to get where they are, and why she provides simple and accessible tax solutions tailored to busy physicians. You just can't get out of it from your day-to-day life. You're either doing taxes or talking medicine. Alexis, thank you for coming back on Practice Care.
Yes, thank you for having me back, Carl. I love having these chats with you.
Yeah, and it's funny. We are talking here on April 15th, end of tax day, I guess, end of tax. And you have a nice big smile on your face, which anybody who watched the watches the YouTube version of this will see. Happy exhale day for you. So we're going to get into retirement planning as a practice owner, different options that you got, et cetera. But for those who haven't heard you before, either here or elsewhere, fill in your bio a bit for us. You have a really cool background. You live with the people you work with, so to speak. So, help us understand you a bit better.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the main reason why I started Cerebral, was because, my husband's a physician, my dad's a physician. So, I've definitely found, I met my husband the second week of college. And so, we've been through this entire medicine journey together, as well as, with me working at local and regional CPA firms. And I noticed for him, hey, he wasn't getting any sort of financial education in med school or residency. And so, I really saw the writing on the wall when he was going to finish his residency, that we were going to go into a much bigger tax bracket. And that's when I wanted to know, hey, why the Warren Buffett's and the Bill Gates of the world were getting those lower tax brackets, or none at all sometimes. What was their secret? What was their secret? And that's where, coming into our discussion, retirement planning is really a big secret to that. Because it's a really great way to not only get a tax deduction, but also build wealth, because it is tax protected. So but yeah, so when I started Cerebral, everything was just really around that proactive tax planning. And of course, we do compliance, we do the tax preparation and the accounting and bookkeeping, and we have CFO services as well. But everything we do is education based. We don't take any commissions or kickbacks on any strategies we recommend or any referrals we make. And so, we just want you guys to know your options. And that's really why they're even here today, listening to you, Carl.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm glad we can have a meeting of the minds here. By the way, we've included a number of your blogs in our newsletter. Not a pitch for the newsletter, but I figure if I can read it and understand it, others have a chance, or at least they can. So it really is plain language. Okay, so thank you for that. Retirement planning as a practice owner. Let's just start with the basics. Give us like some of the choices that a practice owner has when thinking about retirement planning. And folks, just to set the stage, we're not going to be talking about investments or investment advice, portfolio structure, or anything like that. Alexis is not a wealth advisor, financial advisor. We're talking about it from the tax point of view. Still lots of options, things to consider just from that point of view. So, but just to kind of table set here. So go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. So sorry, can you repeat
Oh,
that?
just the choices, just the basic
Yeah, the
choices.
choices.
That's yeah, that somebody's got.
Yeah, great. So when you're looking at business accounts, and that's really important to understand, because sometimes I'll have clients will be like, hey, I have my traditional IRA or I have my Roth IRA. Just remember that's an individual retirement account. It has nothing to do with your business accounts.
Mhm.
So when you're W-2, you might see on, your, as part of your benefits, things like 401ks, 403bs, 457s, etc. Now, when you're self-employed, you have different set of options. So like normally you're not going to have a 403b or 457 because those are usually associated with government or nonprofit sort
Mhm.
of organizations. So what we're really would be talking about today are simple IRAs, SEP IRAs, 401ks, and defined benefit plans. So those are really
Okay.
the four major categories.
Okay.
In general, I never recommend simple IRAs or SEP IRAs. And that's because, for one, like simple IRAs, they're inexpensive to administer, but they really limit the amount that you can put in. So like for 2025, I believe that amounts maybe like 14 or 15,000. It
Oh,
changes every year. That's
okay.
the max you can put in. Now, but if you have employees, that might be an option for you, because it is, like I said, very simple to set up. It's not going to cost you a whole lot.
Mhm.
But really kind of that next option would be that SEP IRA, so self-employed pension plan, really sort of,
SEPP.
that's the
Okay.
acronym. That acronym is a SEP IRA. And this has a higher limit. That's, it's approximately this year about $70,000. There's a little bit more nuance that goes into it, but that is 100% an employer contribution plan. So it's important to remember that depending upon the type of entity you have, so like your sole proprietorship, you have an S corp, a corporation. You're really wearing two hats. You're an employee,
Mhm.
you're an employer.
There's
So
two
that's
of
why
you. Yeah, there's two of you. Yes. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So that's why when I'm talking, you might hear me emphasizing employee, that EE at the end, or
Yeah.
the employer ER. So
Yes.
if you think I'm talking funny, that's the reason why.
Right.
But so with the simple IRA, so excuse me, with the SEP IRA, that's all an employer contribution. So you as the employee, or even if you have employees, don't contribute to that plan.
Okay.
The problem with the simple IRA and the SEP IRA is that if you want to do a tax-free backdoor Roth, which we can talk about more
Mhm.
a little bit, then you cannot do a tax-free backdoor Roth with either of those accounts.
Okay.
So I highly recommend, at a minimum, that you do a 401k.
Okay.
And so with the 401k, they are not subject to the same what's called pro rata rules that would preclude you from doing a tax-free backdoor Roth if you had a simple IRA or a SEP IRA.
Okay.
Again, we can talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So back to the 401k, that has the same limit as the SEP IRA, which is $70,000 for 2025, but you have an employer contribution
Mhm.
and an employee deferral.
So is it
So
70 combined?
it's 70 combined.
Got it.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So let's say you have a salary, you have an S corporation, you have a salary of $100,000.
Mhm.
Now, if you are doing just the SEP IRA, then the max you'd be able to put away is you have 100,000 times 0.25, so it's 25%, so about $25,000.
Mhm.
Because all you're allowed to do is the employer portion.
Right.
But when you have a 401k, you can do the employer portion, which
Mhm.
is 23,500.
Mhm.
And then you can do the the employee deferral, which is 23,500, and then the employer portion, which is would be 25% of the 100,000. So you actually get to put away
$48,500.
$48,500
Yeah.
into
Okay.
that. So that's, by the way, that's all pre-tax. And you
Yes.
can set it up where you can do the employee deferral as post-tax if you'd
Yeah.
like.
Okay.
Um, but um, so that's really that maximum there. Now, if you make over $186,000 in your
Mhm.
salary, then you can do the max contribution, which is 70,000. But you can't go above that 70,000 with the employee and the employer deferral.
Is that you
Um,
alone or how total household? Like what if your spouse also works?
so that's just you as the individual.
Just you as the individual. Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
So, but let's say that you have you have a W-2 and then you have your own side gig doing some self-employed. And
Hmm.
so you can have a 401k for both
Oh.
instances,
Hmm.
but that employee deferral, that 23,500 can only be done once
Got it.
between either account. But the employer contribution
Could be
can be
both.
done through both. So
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that'll allow you to put away a lot more.
Got it.
Um, and then what you can also combine with that 401k is a mega backdoor Roth. So the fact that let's say you earn that $100,000 in for your own W-2 in your S corporation.
Hmm.
Um, as I mentioned before, the max you'd be able to put away is 48,500 with your 401k pre-tax.
Hmm.
But if you wanted to put away up to the 70,000, you could actually put an additional 21,500 into your 401k as a post-tax contribution to get you up to that 70,000.
Okay.
That's what's called the mega backdoor Roth. And there is a bit more steps involved with that. You
What?
have to have certain language in
Okay.
your 401k. But in order to make that happen, but that's another way for you to maximize your retirement through pre-tax and post-tax contributions.
So it's really the mega backdoor is a way to kind of like top off the pre-tax with after tax to get to the 70.
Correct.
So there's
Yes.
not
But
really a conversion going on. Is anything
no,
getting,
it's
that's what's always thrown me. Like I've done a couple of small, I think they're backdoor conversions. I took some traditional IRA money, moved it into a Roth and paid the tax on the transaction. I've been told that's a Roth IRA conversion, maybe backdoor. I don't know. But it's funny. Like I keep waiting for you to say, all right, what's getting converted? But nothing got converted.
well, so it does get converted. So the thing is that when you are going to do that mega backdoor auth contribution,
Mhm.
what happens is you need to first make that contribution into a pre-tax account, into a pre-tax IRA. And then you it's really a non-prototype
No, the
IRA.
just but the
But
mega
then
but the mega
yes,
backdoor. Oh, okay.
yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right,
Yep.
go, go.
Exactly.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so you put that money into those post-tax dollars into your um, non-prototype pre-tax account and business account, and then you roll over those funds into your Roth 401k. So it sounds complicated, and it's more about, I guess, uh, the name of the accounts that kind of confuse people.
So this
Um,
after tax 401k contribution, that's a top off to get to 70,000 eventually, but is now in a is an after tax 401, that's a Roth 401k, right?
yes,
That's what it
yeah,
is.
exactly.
Okay.
Yes, yep, yeah. But just like the normal backdoor Roth,
Mhm.
which is great, which is why the 401k and even the defined benefit plan, which we'll talk about in a second, don't uh, create any pro rata rules to make a portion of your conversion taxable.
Okay.
So for you, like if you in the past had put money into your traditional IRA and said like, hey, you know what, I want to convert that money
Mhm.
to be Roth IRA, then when you do that conversion, if those are pre-tax dollars that you're converting,
Mhm.
then yes, you're going to pay tax on that conversion.
Right.
But the simple fact that you're contributing post-tax dollars to your traditional IRA because you're not taking a deduction for it, and you're not getting any tax benefit on the front end.
Mhm.
When you go to convert those dollars to your Roth IRA, then it's a non-taxable conversion because you've already paid tax on it.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Yeah, that's okay. That makes sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay. And then you wanted to talk about defined benefit plans also.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So this is a different type of plan, and it's a much more sophisticated plan, but allows you to put away a lot more than you can with just a 401k by itself.
This is just like the pension plans that have all but died. Is that right?
Basically,
Kind
yeah,
of,
they're
sort of.
kind of like the new evolution of them.
Oh, okay.
So the 401k plan, and same thing with the SEP IRA and a simple IRA, those are defined contribution plans. So
Mhm.
the IRS is defining how much you're allowed to contribute to the plan each year. So
Mhm.
like that 23,500 is the employee deferral. That's the max amount. The
Right.
70,000, that's the max amount. So they're
Right.
defining how much you can put in, and you can let those funds grow as much as you want.
Mhm.
With the defined benefit plan, the IRS is defining the benefit that you'll receive by the time that you retire.
Mhm.
So when you're designing your plan, you'll tell them, hey, this is the age I want to retire. So let's say it's age 60. And
Mhm.
if you are age 30, then you have 30 years to reach that defined benefit that they've established. So like right now it's about 3.5 million. It changes every year due to inflation. So
Mhm.
and what an actuary does is they calculate based on how much you make, your age, and the balance of the account at the end of the year, as well as if you have employees, et cetera. They'll calculate based on a predetermined rate of growth, annual growth, how much you can put in the current year in
Mhm.
order to reach that
Mm.
defined benefit by the time that you retire.
Mhm.
So it's much more complicated. It is a lot more expensive.
Yeah, it sounds it.
But the thing is that, as I mentioned before, with a 401k by itself, the max you can put away, assuming that you have enough in compensation, you can put away is $70,000.
Mhm.
And just remember, the only part of the calculation that's used for like for an S corp is your W-2 wages. So any distributions you get or profit don't count.
Right.
So this is one reason too, you might
No.
not want to have such a low W-2 wage, because if you want to put more into retirement, then your wages have to be more. So
Right.
um, going back with that calculation, with the cash balance plan or the defined benefit plan, especially let's say if you're 40 years old, I mean, you're easily going to be able to put away, into six figures in
Mhm.
terms of retirement.
Mhm.
So that's where the benefit is, especially if you even do a 401k with a cash balance plan and you can combine the two.
Mm.
I mean, I have clients on average, I mean, they're easily putting away anywhere between, $100 to $300,000 a year into retirement. And so even though it does cost more, the cost is worth the benefit,
Yeah, yeah.
essentially.
It's worth it. Okay, good. All right, good. So now part of all this is that there's the owner, there's your employees if you have them. There's some, I'm not familiar with the rules. I've just been told, if you want to do this, you've got to include employees, but there's like some advantages to being the owner if you've got a plan for your practice versus being an employee. Can you just kind of give us a bit on that?
Yeah. So when you have employees, it definitely makes things, again, more complicated, because what are called ERISA rules, so ERISA,
Mm-hmm.
that those rules were established to protect your employees, the little guys.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, if you have ownership in your business, and or you own, let's say, another business, and that other business pays your business,
Mm-hmm.
that's what's called an affiliated service group rule. And then the fact that if let's say you own that other company, if you own enough shares of it, then that's what's called controlled group issues. And then even if you have employees in one business, but you establish the retirement plan in a business where there is no employees, you would still have to include the employees in that other business.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it when you have employees, it's really important you work with what's called a third party administrator
Mm-hmm.
to create the plan documents, to run those calculations every year, and
Mm-hmm.
then just to make sure that you are staying compliant with Department of Labor, IRS, and ERISA rules.
Right. But true. But as the owner, you can sort of tell me if I'm right or wrong, sock away more than your employees can. Maybe we just covered that with the
Yes.
previous, all the different options that, but that's right, right?
Yes, you can. Yeah, they'll do a calculation. Sometimes your employees can kind of shoot you in the foot a little bit, because in general, if you have an employee that, let's say, makes a decent amount of money and they're older than you,
Hmm.
then, and really with these defined benefit plans, especially, um, if you're like age 50 and you're saying like, hey, I'm going to retire at age 60,
Hmm.
you're going to be able to put away like $300,000-400,000 a year, because you have that shorter period of time to actually reach that max defined benefit.
Hmm.
Where if you're younger, you have more time, so the amount is less. It's
Right.
very similar for employees. They're not going up against like, hey, we're not trying to put away 3.5 million for my employees,
Hmm.
but it can be, they can, you might end up having to put away more for that older employee, and then it kind of hurts your calculation a little
Got
bit.
it. Hmm.
But you're still going to be able to put away quite a bit more than your employees. So I always like to look at this as, hey, this is part of their overall compensation plan.
Hmm.
And like Cerebral, for example, has that 401k cash balance plan. So I have that as part of their compensation package. Hey, look, I'm putting away 3% for you every year
Hmm.
for profit sharing, and then I'm putting away this for you for amount for you the cash balance plan.
Hmm.
And remember too, with any of these retirement plans, you can put in eligibility requirements as well. So like,
Hmm.
this is for the 401k. If you even did that by itself, or if you have a 401k cash balance plan together, you can say, hey, you have to work for me for at least a year before you're eligible. You have to work at least 1,000 hours. You have to be over age 21. And then even with the cash balance plan, like for Cerebral's plan, for example, like they have to be with me for at least 6 years before they're fully vested in the
Hmm.
plan.
Hmm.
So that will create loyalty,
Hmm.
you know, for
Is
your
it a
employee.
scaled like vesting, like
It
20% the
is.
first year or whatever? Yeah, yeah, and they climb up. Sure.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be that way. Like if you're like, hey, like I want my employees 100% vested from day one,
Hmm.
you can write that your plan that way. But there are limits like as well. So
Yeah.
that's just something to remember. And I'm a big proponent of retirement and saving for retirement. I have clients that are like, hey, I need to put money away for college. It's like, well, I know, like, I don't want you guys taking out loans if you don't have to, but
Hmm.
the thing is that you can take loans for education. You can't take loans for
Yeah,
retirement. So
go to a
make sure
bank and
that,
say, I need 500,000 for retirement. See how far you get.
yeah.
See how
So
far you
make sure you're
get.
taking care of yourself. It's admirable. You want to take care of your kids 100%, but, um, there are other avenues. I mean, your kid might get a scholarship, and
Hmm.
for academic or sport. And so, um, don't screw yourself for the sake of your children. Be a little selfish.
Or open up a 529 account and start socking it away regularly, like you should be for retirement, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yep.
absolutely. Okay. Um, how do you counsel clients to think about retirement planning? Especially if they have like a longer time horizon. Um, for example, just bought a house. Oh my God, I've got, you know what I mean? Like because, again, as I said before, um, Cerebral and Alexis are not financial advisors, and we're not talking about that, but the tax ramifications can really be material. And so how do you help them think about that?
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at cash flow, and you got to look at your goals. I have some clients where they're like, hey, our retirement is our real estate. And so that's what
Mm,
they put money into, is they buy real estate, short-term rentals, long-term rentals, etc. And then I have others that will do kind of a combo of both. Hey, you know what? We're going to be buying a new rental this year, so we're not going to be putting as much into retirement. Or uh, they just want, hey, look, like we just want to put away as much as possible, etc. So you do want to work with your financial advisor to say, hey, like, how much do I need to be putting away into retirement,
mhm,
diversification, etc. Cash flow is a big thing. So yeah, if you're trying to save for a house, then you don't want to necessarily put it away into a retirement plan that you're not going to be able to access to.
mhm,
Um, and so, but me being a tax advisor and wanting to save as much tax as possible,
mhm,
I'm like, hey, like as much as you can put into retirement, have those funds grow tax deferred. And then most physicians, in my experience, retire or start to slow down about mid late 50s, early 60s, give or
Mhm.
take. And so let's say if it is 60, then right now the RMD age is required minimum distribution age to start having to take those pre-tax account amounts is 75.
Mhm.
Um, and so you would have a nice 15-year period where you can do controlled Roth conversions and take advantage of
Mhm.
having that smaller
Mhm.
um, uh, um, tax rate because you're not working as much and maybe you're living off of investments and things like that.
Mm.
So, I'm very big into saving as much as possible when you're younger and then putting that money to work for yourself.
Yes.
Than paying, tax at 37% right now. Like, even if you think, hey, I might be in a large, the same tax bracket when I go to retire, that might be the case. It might not be. Maybe you're getting super tax efficient in the investments that you're making, and
Yeah.
you're going to be in a lower bracket. So then take advantage of that now, and go from there. And
Yeah.
I'm not one that believes that tax rates are going to go up significantly. If you look at tax rates even back from the mid 1980s when they did that big tax reform,
Mhm.
they've generally stayed about the same.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
really not a huge swing.
And the truth of the matter is, you and I can think whatever we want. Only time will tell, and it's many, many years
Exactly.
down the road. So, good luck with that one. Um, a lot of ground covered. Very good. And yeah, I mean, I'll say, the sooner you start, you'd rather have time on your side when you're talking about retirement than against you. So do what you can, grow it every year, whatever. I can tell you that we have a meeting every year. It's our financial advisor, our accountant, and us, and so I've got all perspectives covered pretty much, and they can duke it out on a topic or whatever, and then you make a choice. But I just don't fly blind. Anything you think we should have covered that we didn't get to? We did hit a
Yeah.
lot, but what do you think?
Yeah. Well, just we really kind of glazed over a little bit that there's the normal backdoor Roth IRA.
Sure.
So I would love to talk about that just a quick second. Because a lot of people get confused between mega backdoor Roth, like they're two completely separate
Normal
things.
backdoor Roth, not the
Hey,
mega. Smaller.
yeah, the mega just mega backdoor Roth is associated with your business account, your 401k,
Got it.
where the backdoor Roth is associated with your individual retirement account, your
Right.
IRA.
Right.
And a lot of people find that confusing, but if you're, I believe it's if you're making about over, if you're married about I think 200
Low
something thousand,
200s.
230. Yeah,
Some, yeah.
exactly. That changes again every year, so it's good to go chat GPT that
Mhm.
and look it up. But
Not call
uh,
your accountant. Don't call your accountant, just chat
you can call
GPT.
your, I mean, it's on there,
The day
like,
the industry started its obsolescence. Okay, good. Here we
yeah.
go.
I know, maybe putting myself out of a job, but yeah, so if you're making, being married over, they have the low 200s, then you can't do a direct Roth contribution.
Mhm.
So the way that you get around that is by for making a contribution to you. That's $7,000 is the max this year.
Mhm.
So you make that contribution to your traditional IRA. And as I mentioned before, since you're putting in post-tax dollars, because you're not able to get a deduction for it since you make too
Mhm.
much money,
Mhm.
you can just roll that money right over to your Roth IRA. And that rollover or conversion is not taxable because you've already paid tax on it. So it's just an additional way for you to put more way
So
into
if you trip
retirement.
the income limits on a Roth, instead, step one, put it in a traditional, which does not have income limits.
Um, so there are income limits for it to be deductible, but you can
Ah,
put it in and be
so you
non-deductible.
could be a trillionaire and just not get the deduction. Got it.
Exactly.
Step
Yep.
two, roll up, just move it, transfer it over tax-free into, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
It just sounds like it shouldn't be allowed, but it is. It's
It
like,
is. It's allowed. It's
yeah.
100% allowed. And what's cool about that too is that if you have a spouse that's not working, they can also piggyback off of your work and do
Mm,
that backdoor Roth themselves. So you could
hmm.
be putting away $7,000 each. You need to have your own accounts. So
Sure.
you each need your own pre-tax IRA and in your Roth IRA, but you can each do it. And that's just additional way for that to be put in,
Yeah.
and then that's growing tax-free and will come out tax-free if you even want to use it at retirement time.
And that's the big deal difference. And here's another big deal difference, which is way too far in the future to think about. Um, so in 2020, the law changed. So let's say you inherit an IRA from your parents. Um, Now it's yours. It's called a beneficiary IRA. And it used to be before 2020 that you could pretty much hold on to that thing forever. I'm not even sure if there was requirement in the distribution requirements, but you could hold on to it forever. The law changed and said you've got to have that thing fully emptied by 10 years, within 10 years of the day that you got it. And so, and if it's a traditional IRA, you got to pay tax on every penny you take out. If it's a Roth IRA, I'm not even sure. It doesn't matter. There's no tax to pay because it's a Roth. So whether it's 10 years or a billion years, it doesn't matter. So, file this one away as you're thinking about what you want to leave to your heirs. Why leave them a big tax bomb that's now 10 years? It's like it's coming. It's coming. And so, yeah, some other thing to think about. How can somebody get started with this? This is a question I always end with. We just piled on a lot of useful information, but a lot of information. Let's imagine we've got a listener listen to this and say, yeah, I want to get started. Where? There's so many choices. How do I get, should they call their accountant? Should they talk to their, like, what do you recommend?
Talking to a professional is always going to be the first step, because they'll be able to look at your situation and decide, and give you the options of like, hey, this would be a good fit, or this one would be a good fit, and like show any sort of tax savings as well.
Mhm.
And talking to, your financial advisor about, like if you're like, yep, I want to open up that 401k. Well,
Mhm.
they'll be able to open that up for you. There's also online options as well that especially if you're just doing a solo 401k. If you, like I said before, if you have employees, I highly recommend just working with a professional. It gets real
Yeah.
sticky real fast, and
Yeah.
you don't want any sort of liability put on yourself for any wrong decisions to be being made. So,
Mhm.
but if you're doing a solo 401k where it's just, you and your spouse, for example, then, there are lots of online options that, you can just Google and, set up fairly simply with
Yeah. Go
a,
find a Fidelity
yeah,
office. There can't be one that far away from you,
yeah,
kind of, sort of.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. So just get started. That's how you get started. Um, Excellent. Alexis, thank you. Always jam-packed with a lot of information when we talk, but useful information. My motto is, my own thing is, there's no do-overs on the way to retirement. You can't turn back time. It's not exactly true, but I mean, there are but it's nevertheless, start early, put time on your side. Thanks for coming on and giving us some more options, or at least helping us understand the options to do it. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And we have your contact information. They're going to go to the show notes for this episode. So anyone who is intrigued by Alexis and what she was talking about, wants to contact her to see about working with her, you now have another way to contact her. Two quick points. First, you got to subscribe to Practice Care if you haven't done it already. Practice Care is one word. New episode every week. We just crossed 10,000 downloads. That will be old news by the time this one goes live. But 3 years, 150 episodes, deep library. There's a decent chance that a question you have as a private practice owner on the business side might be answered by somebody in an episode. So please subscribe. And then secondly, if you're someone like Alexis or us, you serve private practice owners, or you're a private practice owner yourself, either way, you've got some experience on the business side of private practice, we want you to come on Practice Care and tell the world about it. In the show notes for Alexis's episode and every episode, there's a link, like 2 clicks, quick and easy. Tell us what's on your mind, and we will get you scheduled as soon as possible. Thanks very much, and until next time.